It started with a knock. Not the dramatic kind you see in movies, the one that sounds like it's about to crack the door in half. No. This was polite. 3 evenly spaced taps. Precise. Almost thoughtful. And that's what unsettled me most. It was a Saturday. Early evening. I was standing at the kitchen counter, staring at a lasagna I'd made from scratch, not because I enjoy cooking, but because I needed something, anything, to keep my hands busy. Something felt off that day. Like the universe had cleared its throat and was about to say something terrible. Want me to get it? My wife, Rachel, called from the living room. She was on the couch, barefoot, flipping through a wedding album that hadn't seen the light of day in 5 years. Just something she randomly found while cleaning the closet. I didn't answer. I was already walking to the door. I opened it to find a delivery guy holding a slim white envelope. No name. No logo. No smile. "Are you Mr. Graham Whitmore?" he asked, not even pretending he didn't already know. "Yeah," I said slowly. He handed me the envelope. "I was told to give you this directly. That's all I know." Before I could respond, he turned and walked down the driveway like he had somewhere better to be. I stood there for a second. Just me and the envelope. It felt heavier than paper had any right to be. "Graham." Rachel appeared behind me, suddenly too close. "What is it?" "Not sure," I said, and that was the first lie I told that day. I didn't open it in front of her. I waited until she went upstairs to take a bath and clear her head. That was her new habit, vanishing behind scented steam and locked doors. I sat at the kitchen table and sliced the envelope open with the same steak knife I'd used to chop garlic 10 minutes earlier. Inside, a single photo. Rachel. My Rachel. Wearing a red dress I didn't recognize, sitting at a bar I'd never been to, lips pressed against a man I'd never seen. His hand was on her thigh. Her eyes were closed. And she looked happy. Not the kind of happy you save for birthdays or weekend trips. The kind of happy that ruins people. I didn't move for 5 minutes. Maybe longer. The clock ticked. The lasagna sat there, getting cold. Eventually, I got up. I walked upstairs. Her phone was on the bathroom counter, unlocked, screen glowing with an open message. From someone named Marcus. "Last night was worth every risk." Risk. I turned around, walked out, and drove. No idea where. Just away. Ended up at a gas station, half-tank already full, staring at the lottery tickets behind the counter like they were maps to alternate realities. My phone buzzed. It was her. "Everything okay?" That's when I knew. She didn't suspect a thing. Not yet. So I texted back. "Yeah, just needed some air." And she replied with a heart emoji. I smiled. For the first time in a long time. Because she had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I made her coffee. Same way I always did. 2 sugars, splash of almond milk, stir 3 times clockwise, because, as she once put it, counterclockwise makes it taste bitter. Funny how even her superstitions had structure. She padded into the kitchen in her robe, hair still damp from her shower, smelling like lavender and lies. "Sleep okay?" she asked, sipping without a thank you. "Like a rock," I said. Lie number 2. She didn't look at me when she asked what I had planned for the day. That was her routine, casual disinterest wrapped in routine niceties. Like if we played the part long enough, the play might become real again. "I thought I'd clean out the garage," I told her, rinsing a plate I hadn't used. "Oh." A pause. "That's productive of you." Translation, "That's inconvenient, because I'd hoped you'd leave the house so I could continue cheating on you in peace." I went out to the garage, but I didn't pick up a single tool. I sat on the workbench and opened my laptop, the old one she never used. The one with the backup files and the saved passwords and the email she forgot was still logged in. A shared cloud account. A forgotten device sync. Rookie move. There were texts. Photos. Calendar events. A dinner reservation next Thursday under the name R. Marcus. Real subtle. And then, a second envelope. In the trash folder of her email. She'd written it. To him. But never sent it. It read, "Graham's been so stable lately it's making me crazy. He asks how my day was, like we're still living in a Norman Rockwell painting. I know I should feel guilty, but being with you makes me feel real. Not like wallpaper." Wallpaper? I'd remodeled 2 bathrooms in this house. Ripped up floors, installed new drywall, replaced pipes. And I was wallpaper? That's when I decided I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to build something. Not out of drywall. Out of patience. I set up a new email. New phone. I hired a private investigator. Marcus was a fairly common name, but photos helped. So did the hotel receipts. and the parking garage timestamps. By the time Rachel walked into the garage later that afternoon to ask if I wanted lunch, I was already halfway through building my quiet little armory. Still hungry from last night, I said. Leftovers are good. She smiled. She thought everything was normal, that her secret life was still secret. She had no idea that I wasn't eating lasagna anymore. I was feeding a plan. You ever notice how when people lie, they get extra polite? Overcompensating. Rachel was suddenly offering to run errands for me, asking if I needed anything from the store. She even asked, get this, if I wanted to do a puzzle together after dinner. A puzzle? I stared at her, blinked twice, and said, sure. That was lie number 3. While she pretended to be June Cleaver, I was building the most meticulous exit strategy a jilted husband has ever engineered without raising a single voice. First step, information. I kept a daily log. Time she left, what she wore, which perfume, whether she came back looking exhausted or, exhausted. A few key audio files from our home security system. She forgot that our smart speaker logs more than just weather requests. It hears things, like whispered phone calls in the kitchen when she thinks I'm asleep upstairs. Second step, documentation. Bank statements. Her private credit card I wasn't supposed to know about. Turns out, when you buy gifts for your secret boyfriend, the billing address still shows up in the shared tax return app. I copied everything, digital and print. Triple backed it up to a thumb drive I wore around my neck like a low-tech talisman. Third step, optics. I started acting forgetful. Messy. A little clumsy. Not so much it would draw concern, just enough to make her feel superior. Like she was already the one evolving, and I was the slow, lumbering, predictable husband who probably wouldn't notice if she tattooed, I'm cheating, on her forehead. Let her feel bold. Let her get reckless. One night, she came home late, said her yoga class ran long. She dropped her gym bag by the door, kissed me on the cheek, and asked if I wanted to watch that new documentary on penguins. Sure, I said. Lie number 4. While she watched waddling birds on ice, I snuck into her bag and pulled out a receipt from a rooftop bar with Marcus's name written in pen across the top. He signed the check. He signed with a heart next to his name. I remember staring at that receipt longer than was reasonable, not because it hurt, but because it was lazy, like even their affair was low effort. That was the turning point. I didn't want her back. I didn't want answers. I wanted something better. A finale. The kind that would leave her breathless, not from romance, but from realizing just how hard the floor can fall out when you never expected anyone else to be holding the blueprints. It was around the time Rachel started singing in the kitchen again that I knew my plan was working. See, she only sings when she thinks she's winning. Little hums while slicing vegetables. A full verse of some early 2000s pop song while stirring pasta sauce. Like she's the lead in a rom-com, and I'm just background static, the husband-shaped blur in her periphery. But I wasn't static. I was scaffolding. Brick by brick, I was building something. She just couldn't see it yet. On Tuesday, she left for a networking event. That was the term she used. Networking. Like she was about to shake hands with CEOs and revolutionize our LinkedIn profiles. She wore heels I hadn't seen in years and a dress I didn't recognize. She sprayed perfume and spun in the hallway mirror like she was auditioning for someone else's approval. You look nice, I said. She blinked. Caught off guard. Thanks, she replied, voice tight. That was the last time she saw me as harmless. As soon as her car pulled out of the driveway, I went to work. First, the printer. I'd already loaded it earlier with 2 clean reams of legal paper and a new cartridge. I opened the folder on my computer, Project Chrysalis. Inside were categorized documents, financial statements, email threads, timestamped photos, audio transcriptions. It was a symphony of betrayal, and I was about to hand her front row tickets. As the printer whirred to life, I stood over it like a chef watching souffle rise, calm, meticulous, certain. I wasn't printing rage. I was printing closure, just not hers. Second, the envelopes. 15 in total. 1 for each member of her extended family. 1 for every friend who sat at our wedding table, nodding along as we said vows she apparently mistook for guidelines. 1 for our couple's therapist. Yeah, we had one. Who once told me, Rachel seems disconnected lately. Maybe surprise her with a weekend trip. Sure, document. She was disconnected all right, just not from excitement. By the time she returned, it was close to midnight. I was on the couch, reading, blanket over my legs like I hadn't moved in hours. She smelled like vanilla and someone else's cologne. "Hey," she said casually, setting her purse down. "Didn't think you'd still be up." I looked over the rim of my book. Penguins needed closure. She laughed. Not because it was funny, because she thought I was trying to be. She walked upstairs humming again. At 2 a.m., I was at the kitchen table, sealing the last envelope when her phone buzzed. I didn't touch it, didn't need to. The message preview flashed on the screen. "Still thinking about earlier. You really are incredible. Same time Thursday." I smiled. Thursday. Perfect. Thursday was D-Day. Not for her. For me. Because I'd decided something weeks ago. I wouldn't leave in the middle of a fight. I'd leave in the middle of her comfort. I took the day off work. Told my boss I had to handle some family business. That part wasn't a lie. I waited until she was in the shower singing, of course. Same pop song, like her guilt couldn't reach that pitch. Then I went to the closet, opened the safe behind the coats, and removed the envelope labeled R. Not a name, just a letter. Inside were two things, a typed note and the signed divorce papers I'd filed quietly a month earlier. The note was short. "Rachel, you always said I made things too dramatic. So here's a simple ending. This was never about Marcus. It was about the way you stopped looking at me like I mattered. You left first. I'm just catching up. Gee." I left it on her pillow. Then I took my pre-packed suitcase from the guest room, where I'd been sleeping through my back pain, and walked out the front door without closing it all the way. I liked the idea of the wind doing that for me. A soft slam. A whisper instead of a scream. Then came the delivery. At 3 p.m. sharp, a courier service, prepaid, pre-tipped, pre-scheduled, arrived at her workplace. Delivered 15 envelopes. Handed one directly to her assistant. I'd included an instruction note. "Please ensure these are opened before 5 p.m. today." She called me at 4:17 p.m. I didn't answer. She called again at 4:21, then 4:33, then 4:46. I sat on a park bench with a bag of cashews and a soda like I was watching the world fall back into place without her in it. Her final voicemail was a masterpiece of panic. "Graham, what are you doing? I don't understand what's happening. People are texting me. My mother is crying. Please, can we just talk? Whatever you think happened." That's where I paused the message. Because I didn't think anything happened. I knew. And the beauty of it? I didn't need revenge that left bruises or shattered plates. I didn't need to burn the house down. I just opened the windows and let her secrets fly out, one envelope at a time. When people ask me now what happened between Rachel and me, I say this. She bet on me never waking up. And I did. That's it. No shouting. No drama. Just the truth. And a clean break. They say silence is golden. Whoever coined that never heard the kind of silence that follows a perfectly executed departure. I woke up the next morning in a small Airbnb across town, furnished like someone's grandmother's weekend escape, complete with lace curtains, an ancient floral couch, and a cuckoo clock that didn't know what decade it was. I liked it. No ghosts. No scent of her shampoo in the pillowcase. No pair of high heels by the door reminding me she used to come home late and lie to my face. Just peace. Well, mostly peace. My phone had 28 missed calls. A handful from friends, more from her family, and 8 from Rachel. One message from her cousin Zoe just said, "You okay?" Another from her mother, of all people, "I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. If you need anything at all, call me." Now, there's something surreal about being pitted by the mother-in-law who once pulled me aside at Thanksgiving to ask if I planned on getting serious about a promotion anytime soon. She used to look at me like I was some soft-edged placeholder in a man's suit. Apparently, betrayal makes you more convincing. I didn't reply to any of them. Not yet. I had one more thing to do. Her job. Not the affair, she'd already handled that. I'm talking about her career. Rachel was a PR specialist. A brand polisher. A narrative manager. You could drop her in a room full of arsonists and she'd emerge with a press release about the benefits of controlled burns. So I knew she'd try to spin this. She'd throw up her hands, call it a misunderstanding, cry into someone's shoulder about how hard marriage is when one person just checks out. Classic misdirection. Which is why, the night before I left, I'd done something small but powerful. I sent one email. Not to the company. Not to her boss. To the intern. The new girl. Fresh out of college, eager to prove herself. I'd met her at the office party. She introduced herself with a handshake too firm for her size and eyes that didn't blink when she spoke. She reminded me of me at that age, quiet, observant, too smart to underestimate. The email was simple. If your supervisor attempts to delete or modify any communication involving a personal matter that has been shared with clients, forward this to legal. Trust me, and keep the screenshots. An hour later, she responded. Already done. Turns out Rachel had been venting to Marcus via her work email. Real smooth. She even attached client pitches to those messages, which, if you're not familiar with corporate policy, is the equivalent of mixing business and betrayal with a neon "Fire Me" sign. That was the one thing she'd never expected. I knew how to stay boring long enough to be underestimated. And I weaponized it. She was placed on administrative leave by noon. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just sipped my black coffee and took a walk through the part of town where nobody knew my name. That's where she found me. It was almost poetic, actually. She pulled up in her car while I was standing outside a bookstore. I hadn't even realized I was smiling, probably because I just found a copy of The Art of War for $3. She rolled down her window, eyes puffy, hair in a bun that used to mean she was having a bad day. "Graham," she said, voice cracking like she wasn't sure whether to cry or scream. I didn't move. "Afternoon." She got out. No coat, just a thin sweater and desperation. "You're really doing this?" "No," I said. "I did this. You're just catching up." She stepped closer. "You humiliated me." I tilted my head. "No. I exposed the truth." "That's different." Rachel's jaw tightened. "You could have talked to me." "I could have," I said calmly. "But the last time I tried, you told someone else I was boring. That I folded socks. That I didn't make you feel anymore." Her face twitched. "You said those things," I continued. "And the worst part? You said them like I wasn't a person. Like I was some hobby you got tired of." She looked down. The gravel under her shoes crunched. "Marcus doesn't even matter," she whispered. It didn't mean. "You left that door open," I said. "I just walked through it." Then I handed her an envelope, no theatrics, no dramatic pause. Just a single sheet of paper. She opened it. Her name removed from our joint bank account. Her access to the house revoked. Utilities changed. Legal motion filed. She blinked. "You did all this already?" I nodded. "I had time. You were busy." Silence. The kind that isn't golden. The kind that gnaws. Then she said it, the thing I knew was coming, the last desperate grenade someone throws when the script doesn't go their way. "You're not innocent either." I smiled. "Just slightly." "You're right. I let you walk over me. I made it too easy to stop loving me. But you made it too hard to stay." She said nothing. Just stood there like the floor had shifted underneath her. And then, softly, she asked, "What do I tell people?" I stared at her, that same face I'd once memorized every angle of. The woman who had promised me forever and handed it off to someone else like a party favor. "Tell them I folded my last pair of socks," I said, and finally realized I deserved better. Then I walked back into the bookstore. I didn't look back, because when the echo of someone else's betrayal finally dies down, all that's left is your own voice. And mine? It finally sounded like freedom. There's a strange quiet that follows devastation, not silence, not peace, something in between. Like the air after a storm, where the birds haven't decided if it's safe to sing again. That's what the days felt like after Rachel and I detonated our carefully curated lie of a marriage. People say the hardest part of heartbreak is the loss. They're wrong. The hardest part is re-entry. Learning how to move again, breathe again, in a life you no longer recognize, wearing a name that still echoes with someone else's meaning. I spent the first few weeks doing very little. And by very little, I mean reorganizing a sock drawer I no longer shared with anyone, canceling a gym membership I never used, and trying to remember if I liked tuna salad or just convinced myself I did because she used to pack it for lunch. Turns out, I hate tuna salad. Always have. The Airbnb smelled like lemon soap and possibility. I started sleeping better, eating slower, talking to myself out loud without shame. I know that sounds ridiculous, but when you've been spoken over long enough, your own voice starts to sound like background noise. I was finally giving myself the floor. Meanwhile, Rachel was busy running damage control. I heard through the grapevine, my former brother-in-law, who never liked her much, that she'd tried painting me as emotionally distant. Said I'd emotionally checked out long before she did. He told me this over wings and beer on a Thursday night. I didn't flinch. "She really said that?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. He nodded, looking uncomfortable. "Yeah. Claimed you were always quiet, always working. Like, she made it sound like you invited it." I took a sip of my beer and shrugged. "You know the funny thing about that? What? She used to brag about how steady I was. Said she loved that I was calm. Predictable. He smirked. Now you're predictable and boring. Apparently, folding socks is where passion goes to die. We laughed. It felt good, like the first laugh I hadn't earned through pain in months. I didn't correct him when he called it a divorce. Technically, we were still in the waiting period. The paperwork was filed. Her signature came back overnight. No protest. No plea for reconciliation. Just a scrawled name at the bottom of a form, like she was signing off a package she never ordered. That told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't sorry I left. She was sorry it was public. The next few days, I focused on the essentials. I changed my mailing address. Bought a new coffee maker. Donated the sweater she gave me last Christmas, the one I wore out of guilt, even though it fit like a punishment. And then, one rainy Thursday morning, I received a letter. Handwritten. No return address. It was from her. Just 4 lines. You really meant it. I thought you'd cave. I never imagined you could disappear so easily. You always seemed softer than that. She was wrong. I wasn't softer. I was finished. I folded the letter and dropped it into the kitchen trash without ceremony. It landed between a banana peel and an empty mac and cheese box. Fitting, honestly. That's where expired things go. That afternoon, I met someone. No, not like that. Her name was Elise. She ran the local bookstore I kept wandering into. Not because I needed books, but because the place didn't have Wi-Fi and the chairs were lopsided in a charming, unbothered way. She had a voice like a soft bell and eyes that didn't dart away when they met yours. She never asked if I needed help finding anything. She just let me exist. The first time we spoke, it was about a book cover. Something dumb, like why so many modern novels had watercolor designs with abstract female faces. Because someone in publishing decided that grief sells better when it looks like a Pinterest board, she said, without looking up from her stack of returns. I laughed. She smirked. That was it. We didn't flirt. We didn't pretend to be people we weren't. She didn't know my story. I didn't know hers. But I started coming by every Tuesday. We'd talk about everything except our lives. It became our unspoken contract. Then one day, as I was checking out with a copy of The Road, cheerful stuff, she asked, "How's the rebuild going?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" She shrugged, bagging the book. "You carry yourself like someone rebuilding something. Not mourning. Not angry. Just laying new bricks." I didn't answer right away. Because honestly, I hadn't thought of it like that. I wasn't grieving Rachel. I wasn't planning revenge anymore. I wasn't even waiting for closure. I was rebuilding. New routines. New silence. New voice. So I just nodded. Slow, but solid. She handed me the bag. That's the only way it lasts. That night, I cooked dinner for myself. Not reheated leftovers. Not a bowl of cereal over the sink. A real meal. Lamb chops. Roasted potatoes. Glass of red wine. Jazz in the background. I sat at the small table in the Airbnb's cramped kitchen and looked around. No framed wedding photos. No passive-aggressive sticky notes. No scent of someone waiting for me to fail. Just me. Stillness. And for the first time in years, I felt full. Not from food. From presence. It hit me then. The real revenge wasn't public shame. It wasn't taking her job or exposing her lies. It was this quiet, intentional, unshakable life that didn't include her. Because nothing haunts someone who loves attention more than being forgotten by the one who saw everything. I didn't expect her to show up again. Not after everything. Not after the envelopes, the silence, the letter she mailed without a return address. I thought we were done performing for each other. But people like Rachel don't exit. They circle. It was a Sunday, quiet, gray, drizzling just enough to give the sidewalks a sheen. I was leaving the bookstore with a copy of The Myth of Normal tucked under my arm when she pulled up in a car that wasn't hers. Maybe a rental. Maybe someone else's. She stepped out like she still belonged in my world. "Graham," she said, like it was still a name she was allowed to use. I didn't answer. Just kept walking. She followed. "Please," she said, her heels clicking like guilt on pavement. "Just 5 minutes." I stopped. Not for her. For me. To prove to myself that 5 minutes wouldn't undo 5 months of healing. She stood there, drenched and defiant, hair stuck to her cheeks, mascara turning her into someone half-drowned. "I'm not here to ask for anything," she said. "Then why are you here?" She looked down. Her voice dropped. "I needed to see it." "See what?" "That you're really okay without me." I nodded. "Now you have." I turned to leave. She called after me. I ruined it, didn't I? I didn't look back when I said, "You didn't ruin it, Rachel. You ended it." I just stopped pretending that was the same thing. She didn't follow after that. She just stood in the rain like a woman finally learning what consequence feels like. Fall came fast. The leaves turned without asking permission. The air got that clean, sharp edge like it was done tolerating summer's mess. I moved into a modest rental, not flashy, but mine. Wooden floors, creaky stairs, and a little balcony just big enough for a chair and a coffee mug. I started writing again. Nothing profound. Just thoughts. Fragments. Mornings. I wrote about how healing doesn't feel like fireworks, it feels like brushing your teeth without crying. About how betrayal doesn't always come with screaming. Sometimes it walks in wearing your old hoodie and calls you babe while texting someone else. And I kept visiting the bookstore. Elise and I never talked about our histories. That was our deal. But one Tuesday, she asked, if you could go back to the moment it all broke, would you change anything? I thought for a long time. Then I said, no. I'd just start packing sooner. She laughed. I smiled. It was simple, unforced, the kind of moment Rachel never made room for. I didn't know where Elise fit into my story yet. Maybe she wouldn't. Maybe she was just a person I met when I needed reminding that not everyone wants to win you. They just want to know you. That was enough. I found it by accident. 6 months after the fallout, a mutual friend passed along a sealed envelope. Said Rachel had written it, never mailed it, but insisted it should reach me in case I ever wanted to know. I almost tossed it. But curiosity is a persistent little voice. Inside, in her familiar cursive. Graham. I think I kept waiting for you to yell, to scream, to lose control. That's how I would have known you still cared. But you didn't. You left with grace, and it made me feel small. I used to love your steadiness. Until I started craving chaos again. You were always my anchor. I just mistook the weight of loyalty for something holding me back. I see now it was the only thing keeping me steady. I hope you find someone who sees the strength in you before it's too late. Not after. R. Asterisk. I folded the letter and tucked it in a drawer with the old charger cords I don't use anymore. Outdated. Unnecessary. Still a part of the history. I didn't reply. Closure isn't always a conversation. Sometimes, it's the sound of a drawer closing. I never threw a party. Never posted a single photo. Never wrote a viral takedown. But the people who knew, really knew, watch what came next. They saw the job promotion. The healthier skin. The smile that wasn't just polite. They watched her Instagram go quiet for 3 months, then return with filtered sunsets and vague captions about growth and healing and starting over. But no one ever saw Marcus again. Funny how that happens. Elise and I still meet on Tuesdays. We drink cheap coffee and make fun of book covers. We haven't labeled whatever this is. That's the point. It's not a rebound. It's a rebuild. Slow. Solid. One night, she asked, "Do you believe in revenge?" I thought about it. Then I said, "Only the kind where you live well enough that they stop being the main character in your story." She raised her mug to mine. To peace, then. To peace. And that's the cruelest revenge of all, isn't it? Not rage. Not ruin. Just happiness. Real. Quiet. Undeniable. And hers to witness. But never again to share.